In an anime, movie, or even a novel, why is the antagonist of the story labelled as evil? The answer for this question is obvious, because they're villains who are profoundly immoral or wicked. They're the ones who violate moral codes and harm others. If you ask the question from anyone, that would be the answer that they'd give immediately. When the Titans first appear before the walls, humanity doesn't take long to label the creatures as monsters. They feed on humans, restrict their freedom, and are the bane living beyond the walls. In the very first episode of Attack on Titan, the world is established as good and evil, with humans being the good people and the Titans being the greater evil. In the 23rd episode, we find out that Annie is the female Titan, and in the 31st episode, it's revealed that Reiner and Berthold were the armoured and colossal Titans, and we don't even take a moment to label all of them as evil. The same happens in Season 3 when we realise about the fake government and fake king. But then, there is a scene in Attack on Titan which focuses us to acknowledge our views on who's right and who's wrong. For anyone who hasn't watched Attack on Titan and watched this scene randomly, they'd sure claim the monster of this scene is Armin, and Berthold is the innocent who's getting eaten by a Titan. But the audience who have watched Attack on Titan knows that Berthold was fed to Armin in order to save his life. So what's the difference between a viewer who watched Attack on Titan for a long time and a viewer who watched this scene for the very first time? Their views on the morality of characters is different. When it comes to anime, the medium likes to explicitly exaggerate the internal introspection of characters rather than letting the viewer figure it out like most westernized shows. And being an anime, of course, Attack on Titan follows the same style. In episode 7 of Attack on Titan, Mikasa is questioned by her fellow teammate what made her act so nonchalant, which proceeds into a flashback of her remembering her past. From the first episode itself, the show established Mikasa as the main female character of the series, and even though fans expected her to have a tragic past, they never thought she would divert away from the usual heroic tropes. But after seeing the flashback, we see not only Mikasa, but Eren is also a murderer, which makes them evil characters, right? But can it be defined as a murder? The three men clearly tried to assault Mikasa after killing her family, and both Mikasa and Eren did it in self-defense. This is the first time Attack on Titan drew a grey line over its morality. Is killing a person a bad thing if the person tried to harm you in the first place? If you ask a jury, they would claim that self-defense is never a crime. But a person who committed a crime will always be a criminal, right?
こんな奴らがいるなんて知らずにいれば俺はこんな半端な
As the story progresses and reveals the larger world around it, we also get to see the moral choices the characters have to make. Annie, Reiner and Berthold were three characters who were burdened with the responsibility of invading a foreign nation alone, and along the way they committed many crimes that are unforgivable. Many citizens of Paradis died because of the colossal and armoured Titan attacks, and the female Titan alone annihilated nearly half of the Survey Corps on her berserk run to search for Eren. But if you look from the perspective of the three children, they all did it because of the burden thrown to them from the Mali government. So does this make them evil then? If you followed along, you might have noticed how I keep asking questions but never provide you with any solutions. But if you look at the bigger picture that Attack on Titan tries to paint through its characters and scenes, it seems to give a single-word solution for each of these questions. What creates the morality of right and wrong within a character? Attack on Titan claims the answer for this is perspective. To understand the answer, let's take a look at the theme of how perspective affects an individual and society as a whole.
お前は自分が何をしたか分かっているのか?
有害なケダモノを駆除した。たまたま人と格好が似ていただけのケダモノだ。
エレン!
Going back to Mikasa's flashback, we see how Eren kills two men without regret, and when his father questions him about this later on, he claims they were running out of time. Now you may think that what Eren did as a child was murder, but let's take a moment to realise the world Eren lived in. Ever since Eren was born, his perspective of the world had been divided into two: humans and monsters. The humans were the heroes, the good people. The monsters were the animals, the greater evil that the heroes need to get rid of. Take a moment to understand what Eren says after Grisha asks him what he's done. He claims that the kidnappers were beasts that looked human. In his head, Eren had labelled the kidnappers as monsters, and in his perspective of morality, monsters should be eradicated. This is the reason why he raised the blade without giving a second thought against the men who kidnapped Mikasa. The same can be said for Mikasa as well. In the second episode of the third season, Levi claims that they'll be fighting humans, much for the perplexity of the rest of the squad. But Mikasa readily follows his order without second thoughts. She's seen how evil humans can be since she was a kid. With a perspective like that built onto her, she has no problem killing another person if he's evil. The same can't be said for characters like John and Armin, who still wield the perspective that every human is inherently good and the greater evil is only the titans lurking behind the walls. This makes them hesitate at moments before attacking another person. If we take the theme of perspective of society as a whole, the most obvious example would be the feud between the Eldians and the citizens of Mali. In Liberio, a country in the continent of Mali, Eldians are kept in internment camps and are labelled as demons. The Eldians who live in the camps themselves believe that this is done to justify the actions of their ancestors. The core perspective of all of the people in the society is that Eldians will always be demons despite their appearance. But in episode 57, two children, Grisha Jaeger and his sister, travel out of the camp zone to watch an airship land. These two children were innocents who had nothing to do with their ancestry, but because of one sergeant major named Gross, Grisha's sister is killed. Gross is naive and has the same mindset as the rest of the Mali citizens. Later, when he throws the Eldian rebels off the top of the wall, he says he pities Grisha's sister and claims her fate would have been different if she hadn't been born an Eldian, which signifies that Gross killed Grisha's sister because she was an Eldian, not because he had a personal grudge.
かわいそうにエルディア人でさえなければな。
As the conversation flows, Isayama establishes the mindset of the Malian citizens through the character of Gross. Returning to the theme of morality, you can see how three children born under this perspective have no problem killing an entire city of people at once. Annie, Rainer and Berthold were born under the thoughts that every citizen in Paradise were guilty for their crimes. This is what later results in Rainer's own moral breakdown because of the clash of his perspectives and his actual beliefs. When Rainer sees the death of Marco, he breaks down for a moment later because even though his mind claimed that he was a devil born in Paradise, his heart knew that he was indeed a good person. In the recent chapters of the manga, the theme of morality and perspective plays a bigger part as well. When Eren attacks Liberio and murders thousands of innocents, the soldiers of Paradise divides to two because of their perspectives. Characters like John and Armin lament over what they've done, while soldiers like Flock claim Eren is getting rid of their enemy, and there's nothing morally wrong about that. So to give a conclusion to this video, what's Attack on Titan's take on morality? Morality is subjected to perspective and our ideals alone. Perspective is something that's created within us from the beliefs the world puts into us, and as a result of morality is affected by those perspectives alone. If something is evil, there's no problem eradicating it. But what makes us think that it's evil in the first place? That's perspective. And you should be a genius to craft a story alluding to this philosophy. But as we all know, Isayama is a genius after all.
名は
進撃の巨人
On that note, it's time to wrap up from me. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe to ViniiTube for more anime content. Stay safe and see you soon.